Welcome back, everybody, here to the Joey Osborne Show, and it's finally time here. Obviously, Super Bowl Sunday is finally coming up here, and I think, honestly, I was planning to wait till next week for this, but honestly, I just couldn't stop waiting here. It is finally time to get into NFL draft season here. So we're going to start off here for our first here mock draft for this year. I think we're going to have 4 or 5 again like last year here. So let's get into this here. And I'm very excited to start off here, and I think definitely we are going to have a fun and interesting draft here, to say the least. So we're finally on here, and let's get into it here. The Bears have the first overall pick, and this has been a highly contended topic of discussion as of recent, obviously, of course. They acquired this pick thanks in part to the Bryce Young trade, in which the Carolina Panthers last year got their first overall pick. Which then, let's just say, things have not worked out for Carolina, and the Bears got the first overall pick again, and they weren't even that bad this year, because they actually improved very much at the end there. And obviously, there was the contention here. Do they take Caleb Williams and trade Justin Fields, or they keep Justin Fields and trade down? And I'm going to say here, right now, I think from the way things are looking, I think what's going to happen is I think they're going to draft Caleb Williams here. So I'm going to have him here go first overall. I just think, obviously, Chicago, they're looking for an answer quarterback. And obviously, they do not think Justin Fields is that answer. I'll be honest with you, I think Justin Fields is the answer. I think this would be a horrible move for them to make. However, obviously, this mock draft isn't what I would do. It's what I think they would do. And I just think, as right now, toward this moment here, Chicago wants Williams. They think he's a spectacular quarterback. I think he's Jamarcus Russell written all over him. But that's beyond the point here. And I think Chicago will draft him at this point. Obviously, I think what Chicago should do is trade down and try to get Marvin Harrison, get a whole bounty for the first overall pick. But it seems to be that is not where they will be going. But obviously here, the second overall pick here, the Commanders, another team looking for that quarterback answer. And I think they look at it here and take Jaden Daniels, the quarterback out of LSU. Showed a lot of great, interesting things this year. A very mobile quarterback. Washington's looking for someone at that position to be a revolution for them and get them back to where they want to be, which obviously is back in contention with especially new ownership. They want to win the fans back, and the Commanders are looking for a slam dunk. And I think they think they filled with this pick here. Once again, I'm just going to say this right now here. I do not think this quarterback class is really good that much at all. I just don't think I think it's a very overhyped quarterback class. But Jaden Daniels is a guy that I do think, out of most of these guys, he's probably one of the better ones. And I think he could probably be a serviceable starter. But I don't think he'll be anything special beyond that. But I think, obviously, Washington, they're looking for the quarterback. They want their quarterback in the future. And I think compared to him and Drake May, Jaden Daniels is the better option out of the two. But the third overall pick, surprise, surprise, it's a quarterback again in Drake May, the quarterback out of North Carolina. The Patriots have pretty much outright said here they want a quarterback and they want to get back into contention as soon as possible. They've clearly done with Mac Jones, and obviously if you watch the games, you cannot blame them for being done with Mac Jones. First draft here, out of the Bill Belichick era and into the Gerard Mayo era, which we'll see how long that lasts, but I doubt it won't be Belichick time. But obviously, they're looking for their new quarterback. They think Drake May is the answer, and I think they take him here. What I think about Drake May is, I think he'll be an okay starter, but I don't think he'll ever develop into any spectacular star player or anything. But I think he will be a serviceable quarterback. So I don't think it's a horrible selection for New England. But there's some better talent here that you could be taking that they're not. But moving on here to the fourth overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals. And I think this one here is going to be very interesting because this precisely falls into their lap. And I think the Cardinals, their new general manager and all the new people they have in there, they're actually a lot smarter than they have been in the past. And they take the easy slam dunk decision here in the best player on the draft, Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver out of Ohio State, who I think is one of the best wide receiver prospects we have seen in a long time. And this guy just reminds me, if you watch him, so much of Larry Fitzgerald, and I think it's just perfect for Arizona to be there and be able to pick him up and bring him in there. I think Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyler Murray, and also Marquise Brown as well. All three of them combined are going to be a spectacular offense to watch. And James Conner, not James Harrison. James Conner, running back as well, will definitely, of course, make this a very more dangerous offense than it has been in years past. But obviously here, now we have the Los Angeles Chargers, and this is a very interesting one here. I think definitely they can go a lot of ways here, especially now with Jim Harbaugh as the new head coach. They're looking to start things, get things back, and fix it up where they need to be. And I think with this selection here, they are going to go with an offensive tackle, and I think they go here with Oliyama. I'm playing the guy and say his name right. Oliver Fasciano. I'm just going to say his last name, Fasciano, because that's the only part I can pronounce. The offensive tackle out of Penn State. He has shown a lot of great skill to this point, and I think it's definitely, he is a very exciting prospect. I know a lot of people think Joe Alt is probably now the better offensive tackle prospect. However, I feel that Fasciano is still the best of the two, and I think he's a slam dunk if whoever decides to draft him at this point here. But moving on to the 6th overall pick here, the New York Giants, obviously a massive step back this year. They thought they'd be playoff contenders. They thought they were finally in the right direction after last year. However, that has not really played out to the way that they thought and turned into complete disaster. A lot of injuries, and they have a lot of needs on offense. But I think a crucial one is wide receiver, and I think they take that here with drafting Malik Nabors with the 6th overall pick. The wide receiver out of LSU had a spectacular breakout year this year, and he developed a lot of great chemistry with Jaden Daniels. And I expect his breakout to continue into the NFL as the Giants finally get themselves a bona fide number 1 wide receiver in Malik Nabors. And obviously, I will say this as well. I do think Jalen Hyatt's going to develop a lot more this year for the Giants too. So watch for that as well when you're watching the Giants this year. But the 7th overall pick here, the new Tennessee Titans, of course, now have found Mike Vrabel as head coach. They now have hired Brian Callahan, looking for a brand new start. And I think this starts here at offensive line. I have him taking Joe Alt, the offensive tackle, out of Notre Dame with that pick to bolster up what has been a very struggling offensive line. And I think definitely pairing him up with Skoronski will be very good. Honestly, Tennessee thinks they got their franchise quarterback in Will Levis. And when you have someone who you think's a franchise quarterback, you got to make sure you draft some good offensive linemen to block them. And I think that's the pick you got to take here. Are they the most exciting picks? No, they're not. But are they probably the most necessary picks to make? They are probably the most necessary picks to make if you want to succeed at this level here. And obviously, that is something that, of course, Tennessee wants to do. They finally want to get back into things here. And I think, obviously, building back up your offensive line is going to help you out big time. But Atlanta here, if they'll pick, I think they are going to go to an area of much need that they have failed to address in many years, when they really should have. I know I've been screaming for them to address this for years now, still haven't, and I am going to continue to scream it. I think they're going to go edge rusher here in Dallas Turner with their pick, as they try to bolster up a pass rush which has not really been that existent for a while now. Obviously, the defensive side of the ball needs a lot of work, and now quarterback as well. I think that's now a lot of people think they're going to go, but what all is here at the moment, a lot of the good options are gone. And I think they decided to go for a defensive player instead and pick the edge rusher Dallas Turner out of Alabama, who has shown a lot of great promise. I'm excited to see how he does develop. But here now, of course, the Chicago Bears, their other 4th round pick, which actually is their 4th round pick. They're going to go, once again, here, they're going to try to get a great player here, and I think they're going to address another need that they have in edge and take Jared Vales, the edge rusher out of Florida State. He has looked spectacular this year. I think he's I am ranked very high, I would say here. He is probably my top-ranked edge rusher at the moment. I just think Atlanta's going to they're probably going to want to go for a Bama guy instead, and they go for the Bama guy. But I would say Vos is probably the best edge rusher in this draft. I think this is a perfect pick for Chicago, and I think this will definitely continue to bolster up that defensive line, especially after the acquisition of Montez Sweat at the trade deadline. It was clearly starting to work out. I think they draft Jared Vales here and continue to make that even more deadly defensive line as they try to start competing for NFC North championships. But I'm moving on to the New York Jets. This will be a very interesting pick here. They can go a lot of places, but where I do think they go is I think they will go here offensive tackle, and I'm going to say J.C. Latham, the offensive tackle out of Alabama, will be the pick there for the New York Jets. As obviously after we also happened to Aaron Rodgers was in the first game last year, they're looking to get as much offensive line protection as they can to make sure that does not ever happen again, and I think that's what they do here with this pick. Obviously, of course, now that Broderick Jones got stolen for them thanks to the Patriots, but obviously they're going to try to address this again and get that offensive line issue fixed. And I think, obviously, for the Jets, I think that should be their top priority this offseason. That was their downfall this year, and it's going to continue to be their downfall until they get this problem fixed. But next up here, we have the Minnesota Vikings here, and I think here, obviously, where this team goes is, I think they are going quarterback with their first round pick. They need a quarterback. They've been looking for one, and I think they draft one here. And I think they go with Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback out of Washington. I know people think McCarthy and Nix are probably better quarterbacks. They're ranked higher, but I do not think they are better quarterbacks. I think Penix, in this draft, I think he is the best quarterback. Out of all the ones out there, he is the best one. I think he's probably the one that's been translated most to the pros. And before you say, oh, Caleb Williams is so good. If you watch Caleb Williams' games, he's not good at all. He's just a very overrated player, kind of like Jamarcus Russell. And I'm going to keep calling him the next Jamarcus Russell because I just... You can tell that it's going to happen. I just feel like this guy has talent, but I just don't think he's really going to, actually be able to act on it to the point where he can be good. And I just do not think at this point Caleb Williams is that good. I think Minnesota, they're looking for youth at the quarterback position. I think they still bring in Kirk Cousins for another year, but they have Penix sit behind him and learn from Kirk Cousins here. But obviously here with the next pick, this is going to be a very interesting pick here. Denver, they have a lot of needs. They can look a lot of places. I think quarterback was an area they wanted to look at. However, obviously that has not really played out well for them to this point. And I think that's going to continue here as they just don't have a quarterback there available. And I don't think they're going to mess with that. I think what they do is they see somebody here that they like and they decide, you know what? That's a good idea. I think I'm going to do that here. And I think what they do is they address a completely different need here. And I think what they address is here the edge rusher. And I think they take Laiatu Latu, the edge rusher out of UCLA. I'm very high on this guy. I think this guy can be a very good player. And I think there's a lot to build off here. I think this is someone who can be very good and help to build up the pass rush that Denver has lost with the, of course, the trades of both Von Miller and also, of course, Bradley Chubb. They have been lacking a great edge rusher for a while now. I think Latu is going to fix that solution for them, and I think it's going to be a very good pick for them at this point. But with the Raiders here, a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of areas in need you can fill, and I definitely think there's some they do at this spot here. And I think what they do is, I think they're going to go more to the defensive side. I think they take Terrion Arnold, the cornerback out of Alabama. Their secondary was narrow in defense. They needed a lot of work on. And I think this is where they come in and they decide to get some work put on it and get that all fixed up. And I think that's who they take here with a selection trying to bolster up a little beleaguered secondary that they had last year. I think there's some great pieces on it they can build off of, but they need more pieces, and I think that's a perfect piece for them to come and pick up here. But for the 14th selection here now, of course, New Orleans here. I think what they do in this one is, I think this is going to be an interesting pick, but what I think they are going to go is I think they're going to go Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. He obviously a spectacular tight end, one of the best ones we've seen in a while. But due to all the quarterbacks that are getting taken, I think he falls a good bit, and I think he falls to 14. But he falls right into New Orleans' hands. Obviously, of course, now the new OC, Clint Kubiak, obviously did a great job with, obviously, tight ends in general. Of course, George Kittle in San Francisco. And they get a bona fide star tight end here for New Orleans that can definitely help develop that offense back to where they would like it to be. But, of course, now the 15th overall selection, the Indianapolis Colts, they saw when Anthony Richardson was healthy, they saw some great progress. And I think they continue to bolster up that offense, and they take Rome Odunze, the wide receiver out of Washington, with that selection to try to bolster up and build up the passing attack to this point. So I think that is where they go, and I think that's definitely a good pick for them. I think Odunze is a spectacular wide receiver. I think he is one of the best out there. And I think this is a great pick if you're Indianapolis. But Seattle here, of course, now they are up a lot of places you can go. But I think where they go is offensive tackle. And I think they take Talize Fuga, the wide receiver out of Oregon State here. I mean, offensive tackle. I think it's, did I say wide receiver? I meant offensive tackle out of Oregon State. They need some help on the other side. Charles Cross has been good, but on the other side, they need a little more on the offensive tackle. Obviously, offensive line was up and down this year. They want some improvement. For you guys, should obviously fix that for them and hopefully get them back to where they need to be. But now move on to Jacksonville here. A lot of places they can go. And what I think they do here is I think they're going to go defensive line. They need more of a pass rush out of the pass rushers. I think they get it here in Zelhorn Newton, the defensive lineman out of Illinois. He showed a lot of progress this year in developing. He's someone who I think will take a little bit of development. But once they get the work going, I think he would definitely be a big help to that offense at this point. Now moving on here to the Cincinnati Bengals. With their selection here, I think they're going to go on defense. They need some help rebuilding that secondary, getting it back to where they need to be. And I think they're going to take Nate Wiggins, the cornerback out of Clemson, with that selection. Obviously, had a great season at Clemson. Looking to continue to build, especially at the pro level. Cincinnati, they need cornerbacks bad. And I think Nate Wiggins is going to fill that hole for them at this spot. But now moving on to the Los Angeles Rams, we are going cornerback again. Cooper DeJean, the cornerback out of Iowa, is going to be the selection. They've been looking for a big play cornerback for a while now since trading Jalen Ramsey. They've had some people show up, but I think obviously their first round pick, that is who they take as they try to rebuild that defense with the young talent they already have from this year that's developed well, and they look to continue to develop that to this point. Now we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They'll pick here, obviously. A lot of places they could go. Cornerback, O-line, a lot of places. But what I think they do right here is they're going to go cornerback with Kool-Aid McKinstry, the cornerback out of Alabama. I think this is one of the best cornerbacks in the draft, him and DeJean, one of the two. The secondary was a massive liability for the Steelers last year. And even though there's some great offensive linemen in this draft here, it is a somewhat deep draft. So I think definitely they can get a lot of good players out of that. And the secondary needs a lot of help. So I think they take that with their selection here. But now looking at the Miami Dolphins here, their selection, a lot of places they can go. Definitely they have a lot of needs. But what I think they do here, in my mind, is obviously, I think they may go offensive tackle here. I think Austin Jackson hasn't really panned out. So I think Amelius Mims, the offensive tackle out of Georgia, will be the selection there as they need to protect Tua better. I think that's something they've needed to address, and I think they do address it here with that selection. Moving on to Philadelphia, a lot of areas they have need in. Now, of course, rumors of, of some, movement in the organization. Of course, Brown has said, seems like he may want out. They may be looking for a wide receiver here, try to bolster that offense up here, and I think that's what they do here. And I think they're going to take Keon Coleman with their selection now, the wide receiver out of Florida State. Moving on to Houston here, I think they continue to build. They need some help on, I think, the O-line. O-line, obviously, I think that's the area they need help. However, I think they go D-line here, and I think they go Byron Murphy, the defensive lineman out of Texas, with their selection here. Moving on to Dallas here, a lot of places they could go, but I think they go offensive tackle, and they go Troy Fatunaru with that selection, the offensive tackle out of Washington. Obviously, they have Tyron Smith getting a lot older now, and they're needing to definitely, get a younger on that offensive line, and I think that's what they do with this selection here. Moving on to Green Bay here, a lot of places they can go. I think they go offensive tackle, and I think they go Tyler Guyton, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, with that selection. Obviously, they've had a lot of injuries there. They need to get some more youth on that offensive line, protect Jordan Love, who they are definitely thinking is the future of that franchise. They get it here, and they get some good protection to that point. Moving on to Tampa Bay here. Obviously, I think normally they would be going offensive line. However, there's not really much here in the area of which they need. So what I think they go instead is they go to the defensive side of the ball and they take a cornerback in Keon Mitchell out of Toledo with that selection to help bolster back up their offense. Arizona, of course, here, once again, back at it. They have great opportunity to get another great player here, and I think they take Demarion Robinson, the edge rusher out of Penn State. They've been looking for a lot more from that pass rush. Obviously, Jonathan Gannon, a defensive mastermind. Obviously he's looking for more from his defense. I think this is a guy who they can bring in and help get that defense going into where they want it to be going on here. Now, moving on to Buffalo, the 28th selection here. I think with this selection, they take a wide receiver. And looking at what's on the board here, I think where they are going to go is they are going to go with Troy Franklin, the wide receiver out of Oregon. I just think I like Brian Thomas Jr. a lot. He's a guy I really like to look at. But I just think Troy Franklin is probably a little more of a better fit for the Buffalo style of play. And I think that's going to be a slam dunk pick for them as they try to develop and get more weapons for Josh Allen. The 29th overall pick, the Detroit Lions will go for another interesting pick here. And they're going to take Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU. They need more from their wide receivers, and they get it here with that selection. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens. Wide receivers an area they can go, and I do think that's an area they look at. However, they have a lot of pending free agents on the defensive side of the ball, including some of the star edge rushers, and I think Braylon Trice is going to be the pick here, the edge rusher out of Washington, as they obviously try to get more youth into that position at this point. And moving on here, of course, to KC. These two last picks are just projected as to who they think is going to win the Super Bowl, so they have Sam Farrell in this one winning it. So we're going to go off this here. With Kansas City here, I think what they do is, I think they go offensive tackle, and I think Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. It's a perfect pick there, and they go with that selection. And of course now San Francisco as well. A lot of places they can go. I think they go cornerback, and I think Ennis Rakestraw Jr. out of Missouri had a great year and a great comeback year. I think he is the selection with that pick. And now, of course, moving on to the second round, Carolina finally has a draft pick here. And I think they take Graham Bowen, the interior offensive lineman, out of Duke with that selection. Now, moving on here to New England, I think they can go a lot of places, but I think they're going to get an offensive weapon here for Drake May. And I think they go Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver out of Georgia, as they try to get a weapon here for the young Drake May. Now, moving on to Arizona, if they'll pick here, they can go a lot of places, but I think they're going to go once again on the defensive side of the ball and go Kamari Lassiter, the cornerback out of Georgia, with that selection. Moving on here to Washington, they're going to go offensive line here, and they're going to go with Kingsley Samatia, I think that's how you say his last name, the offensive tackle out of Birmingham Young University with that selection. Moving on to the Los Angeles Chargers, a lot of areas they can go. I think it's a good pick that they get in the first round, and I think they continue here. I think it's going to be more of a defensive side of the ball kind of guy. And I think what they do here is I think they're going to go with Donnie Mitchell, the wide receiver out of Texas, as they look to get more weapons for Justin Herbert, especially with Keenan Allen getting up there in age. You need to get some more wide receivers in there and help them develop, and I think that's what they do with this selection here. Moving on to Tennessee, I think this time they go edge, and I think they're going to go Chris Brassel, the edge rusher out of Alabama. They need some more depth on the defense and get some young guys in there. They do that with that selection here. Now, moving on to Washington. This is where things get interesting, because I don't have them taking a quarterback in the first round. However, I think the second round is ideal for them to pick someone up, and I think they take Bo Nix, the quarterback out of Oregon, with that selection and put some competition out there for Daniel Jones in this spot. Now, the Commanders here, once again, they have another pick, and I think with their selection here, now they're going to go with no offensive lineman in Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon with that selection. This guy is spectacular. I think he's probably the best center in the draft. But what I will say is, I think this guy will probably shoot up draft boards. So I think by the time it's the last mock draft, he'll be a first-round pick. But at the moment, I have him in the second round going to Washington. But I think that's a great pick for Washington, as that really helps bolster their youth movement that's going on in the organization at this point. Moving on to Green Bay here, they try to get some young guys just in general on the team. And then Commons Kinchens, the safety out of Florida. Obviously, safety is now they probably need to look at. It's just, a lot of recent pieces there, a lot more older pieces. I think they need to look and try to get some better. And I think that's what they do with that selection right there. Now with Minnesota here, obviously I'm taking Penix Jr. at 11. It's high pick, but I think they really want the quarterback bad. I think that's what they do. But moving on here, I think definitely now in this scenario here, they try to look at more, obviously, on the defensive side and fill their needs there. And I think Tavondre Sweat here, defensive lineman out of Texas, is the pick there that they can take and hopefully get them to where they want to go. So here, of course, next pick with Atlanta. I think quarterback is something they look at, and I think J.J. McCarthy, the national champion quarterback out of Michigan, will go to Atlanta and hopefully give Desmond Riddle some definite competition to this point. Hopefully be Atlanta's quarterback of the future. I don't think McCarthy really will be one, but I think in the second round, he is a guy you can take a risk on at least. I don't think he's a first round talent, but in the second round, I don't mind taking a risk on McCarthy. And I think Atlanta, they've been missing some great quarterback play for a while. I think this will help. Moving on to Las Vegas here. I think they looked at McCarthy, but they're not going to be able to get him. So I think they go for another need of theirs and go with Patrick Paul, the offensive tackle, out of Houston in their selection, try to bolster up the offensive line, and hopefully that gets things going in the right direction. Now looking at New Orleans here, this is a very interesting place to be in. They have a lot of options, but I think what they do here is I think they're going to take Jalen Polk, the wide receiver out of Washington. Obviously, other than Chris Olave, they really haven't got much from their wide receivers. Michael Thomas has kind of had a lot of bad injury years now, and just haven't got what they've been wanting. So I think they go, and they try to get another wide receiver to hopefully help and maybe fix out that offense. But now, moving to Indianapolis here, a lot of places they can go. I do think they go on the defensive side this time. I think they go Darius Robinson, the defensive lineman out of Missouri, with that selection, as to try to get some more young players to be more pass rushers on the quarterback there to this point. And then moving to the New York Giants again here. A lot of places they can go. However, where I think they should go here is I think this time they've addressed the offensive side of the ball. I think they got to get on the defensive side of the ball now here. And the pass rush is good. I don't think that's where they need help. I think where they really need help here really is more in the secondary. So obviously, let's look out here in the secondary, see who's available. I think Tyler Nubin is available, and I would say that's who they go for this pick. They draft him a little high, but they have a need for safety. McKinley's been good, but the rest of them have not really been that good. And I think they look here to try to get more out of those safeties. And I think they take Nubin out of Minnesota with that selection. Moving on to Jacksonville here. I think Xavier Legette, the wide receiver out of South Carolina, is the pick, as they try to get more wide receivers in that system to help, of course, obviously, Trevor Lawrence out in that spot. Moving on to Cincinnati here, I think where they're going to go here, I think defensive line is where they go. And then they take Chris Jenkins, the defensive lineman out of Michigan, with that selection. Moving on to Philly here, a lot of places they can go. Obviously, cornerbacks and everything they can go. And I think here, obviously, this is where they go. And I think they're going to go Kalen King, the cornerback out of Penn State. So the Steelers will not get a reunion of JPJ and Kalen King. But obviously, right here, I think that is... Philly definitely needs a good cornerback, and then Kalen King can fill that role for you. Moving on to Pittsburgh here, the second round pick. They're going to go center here and take Zach Frazier, the West Virginia man, who's a center. I would say this is one of my favorite guys, offensive line in the draft, especially at the center position. I think he can do well for them, and I think it's a good pick for Pittsburgh in this spot. Moving over to LA here, I think they continue to address the defensive side of the ball here. And I think they're going to draft another cornerback in TJ Tampa out of Iowa State and tend to bolster up that secondary. Now, of course, we're back here to the Eagles. And this time, I think they're going to get a linebacker, and Edwin Cooper, the linebacker out of Texas A&M, is the selection in that spot. Moving on to Cleveland. Obviously, know what they want this year, and they are definitely needing to look at possibly getting some more wide receivers here, and I think that's what they do. And I think they take Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver out of Texas, who was kind of a disappointment this year. However, he's got a lot of great potential. I think this is a very good match for Cleveland in this spot. Moving on to Miami here. I think Delano Taylor, the defensive lineman out of Miami, Florida. I think that's their pick. They need to bolster up the defense. I think he does that for them at this spot. Now, I'm looking over here at the Cowboys. I think they're going to go offensive line again here. They still need help, though. And then I think Cooper Bayday, the interior offensive lineman out of Kansas State, is the selection at that spot. Moving over to Tampa Bay here. I think this time they go wide receiver. I think Dontez Walker was the selection there as they try to get more weapons for Baker Mayfield here at this point. Looking at Green Bay here. This one, I don't think they're going running back. I don't know why I suggested running back. I don't think they're going to go for that. What I think they're going to go is more, I think they are going to go defensive again. I think they're going to go D-line and take Brandon Dorless out of Oregon with that selection. Moving on here to Houston, I think obviously a lot of places can go. And I actually think they're going to go running back here. And I think they're going to take Blake Corum with that selection and try to obviously get some more out of their running game, which was somewhat lacking this year. Moving on to Buffalo with their selection here, I think they address they'll need a linebacker and take Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the linebacker out of Clemson. And hold on a sec, here. Sorry about that. Someone was banging on my door there. Moving on here to Detroit. Their selection. They are going to probably take defensive line. Michael Hall Jr. I'm going to have him go with that pick. Moving on to Baltimore. I would say here, once again, I think they're going to take cornerback. And Kalen Carson will be the selection at that pick. Moving on to KC here with their selection. I would say they go wide receiver and they go Roman Wilson with that selection. And moving on to San Francisco, last pick in this mock draft, I'm going to go Keelan Amizade, the offensive tackle out of Yale, with that selection. And I will finish off the mock draft. Thank you guys for listening and hope you guys enjoyed that mock draft. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.